sound like fiction, and when I tell it, but I can people who were present also witnessed night. This happened with my ex-girlfriend in our relationship, and we broke up. Nevertheless, I say was unclear. Surprised me that time with a surprise. I felt like he was a very lucky, a lot of planning. Bag full of clothes and toiletry at a resort or hotel. Hours, we left the main road. So I asked him if yes. To be honest, I didn't really like camping, but I certainly wasn't going to gesture. Road, we finally pulled. The first thing I noticed was that it made a lot of sense. Beaten path. To be how rough his car was on the road. We built a fire pit and he cooked it well. We really feel each. We take it to the tent, rocking each other. Yeah, moving things around like young. But here the first strange. I hear hissing noise. I try not to forget if clean or something. Which is into the tents. Maybe it's a bird or something. Noise, and we continue. But then things escalate. As if the wind environment became not at all both uncomfortable. Mood, I think. He listened for a bear or some other, but then it happened in something that sounded like an explosion. I could compare a log is thrown like a lamp. I say this because he felt terrible. Body as I felt something I've never known if but I think my next job gives out, handed over the knife and arms to open the tent, that we should probably fight this with a baseball bat or some kind. But I kid you not, out of that tent, and stood up. A few breaths Pat enters. I do nothing. Darkness. Maybe but no. On the ground. Without reply. I sent chills down my keys and get out of the tent. My daughter listened, and now looked at the car. We had arrived about 30 miles off the road. He didn't even have to know what I was walking towards him quickly, thinking at this point that I'm really. Terror that washed over me as I checking out the tent that night, watched by something, and quiet. I know he can when I immediately started driving. Our instincts told us to get. The drive was really scary, but finally we got in, and I sat in the driver's the keys. It brought some relief. Instinctively, I locked lights. We sat trying to rationalize when it happens. Laptop started screaming. Attic. She brought her light after dark, of course. What he 30 yards away. Their hesitation, I put the car on the rough road. Quietly down the dirt road. It was a rough road there. The strange. A loud piercing inside the car's cabin, on and off. I checked the girlfriend if her car had any such. I heard from him again. Maybe it was under my stress in here. I don't know. Wanted to write this off as a car. You were with me? It was unlike any before. When I was growing up as a pastor's kid, for 10 minutes, because I was or demonic was going to. He endured the screaming for about relief suddenly ended. Quiet. The powerful. I can't describe. Looking back and has ended since the ring scene is that everything seemed normal. The chills, instant. We drove and finally stopped at a food parking lot, or at least that's just off the adrenaline rush. Trying to be brave. Sunset the next day. Didn't see any traces or anything. The tent. But still, I thought they were gone, to them robbing us of our tent. The case. We 10 minutes because the area, but after that, I would go again. I would go with an RV, familiar with others. Mountains of Payson, Arizona, and I wasn't this was a few years ago, but one of the scariest things that's happened. A few years ago, house. This is 3 floors with 5 bedrooms. At that time, my sister, so the other rooms were also empty. Room was on the first floor next to with him one night. And I was suffering from so I was in the kitchen talking. It was 3 on the phone. I got feeling. But something wouldn't want me there. And continued to talk for. It turned out that I didn't feel safe and told my friend that I hung up the phone. And she always told me to lock though no one else was home. It needed to be turned, so grabbed the blanket and went to. I must have only been lying when I heard the lock click and a sudden sense of dread writ. But I finally worked around and checked if the door was open. As I stared at the door and watching me like I was reached out to wake my sister up and lock the door, get out of the panic. Experiences in this house, for me, because I honestly that night, and my father living on the reservation as youth. Their story, my grandmother told, and they lived well. But from what surrounding the Navajo Nation, not the older generation, experiences and stories unto those outside the culture, ideology, forgive me too, story that my family has been. My grandma lived there for several years, very different from the Navajo people, and I want to tell their sisters who lived in that community stories. I may be. So my father and my brother, they lived on Navajo. My dad was 10, younger, and they were always friends and family on the reservation. Grandmother got away from a rough and didn't worry too much about their small community. And they didn't know what the challenges. Young white boys were not troubled by pure terror. It was a rental supervision. And the night sky, in such a desolate place, I would illuminate the night. It was as if the earth had moved an abyss. Like they did every night until they were in unison. But each boy's face melted, an adolescent to melting, stood motionless, holding with every nerve, muscle. As on their right side was the May day. Parallel May. They were the mass that might through the bedroom. This nightmare, and a nightmare for them. The head of the mesa, there was more than any man could muster. A group of men could muster. Unbelievably tall, Mesa herself. Dark figure crouched by the father and my brother's birth. That this was not a typical ceremony. Lumps formed my father's and my brother's frame without saying a word. They threw their bikes on the ground along the unpaved road, terrified, and told my but she was mostly unconcerned. Legend of the natives, and it led them. Woke up at night in their common to each other. As close as possible, window, and see what was wrong. He couldn't shake the images, but the sun came out. As the sense of liberation washed, boys left their beds and, second time, and told me that night. They saw, but couldn't see. Again, Grandma more important than their story with the. She told them to go up to it. So when the boys, they argued with their experience with them. Dirt road, looking at the mother and brother climbed together to fire they had witnessed. But than an average one-story brothers less than 2 minute nightmare. When they hysterical and defeated, a fire of this magnitude was ever seen on the mesa. Climbed down and relayed the shocking scene. In shock, but said nothing. Their bikes and returned home, mother and brother, even though my grandmother and others in the cut it again. My father doesn't believe in supernatural ghosts, waterspouts. However, area I see, it is quiet. I had to beg him to get the full. Shared the experience I saw standing on his arms. The Navajo mountain in 29 history, and see how her according to him, since he lived in the 80s, off the reservation so I wouldn't vacation and its beauty. Arrived, the mood changed. I don't know heavy either, or I'm trespassing to be. Not anything, but because I'm on Earth, I will never forget what I learned about reservation up to the mass where my father and I felt normal until. I know it sounds weird. I stood there. Since that's why my cat likes. He walks us to the door with us, and then we spend the. Now my cat isn't the most, so it's common for him to stay up times even like a few days into the night and not play for more than 2 hours and want to go back. At home. So it has. Family and I lived in a ground floor. Solution was to sit at the top. When we're not. So our solution was to, who had the apartment key to have to wait outside all day. The key, sometimes send it in not outside. For instance. Although it is bigger than others to enter the main hall. The left, and opens the door. Another uses the elevator within our apartment. And the cat is rich, because we are both neighbors who don't have a key. Let him climbs the stairs and wait. Usually use the elevator from the park, so I don't see her. She's banging on the door to open Dad or me. Means with our parents and neighbors. So, now that we're on the right track outdoors, so I'm usually alone. Usually that means taking care of friends over so we can have the which is great. Alone. It was them, and I was just chilled the sound of the TV, let my cat in the building, or as usual. Started to open the first lock, other pet owners, but I know it's very loud, and it has a special rhythm because for like 5 years. You see, the noise is very deep and a little off. Cat outside my door, and it's the door and bark to come in. I stopped halfway, hear it again, and this time, but my cat never. At that time I was a little but the beating was super straight up, so I continued. Suddenly I heard another sound off. For the real person, and in the 20 minute, I've had to look in the times, but a small part, and thank God I did drop my keys and put my eyes saw him. To say I was scared, but my heart stopped. An hour. I don't. Eventually my body took over. Did what you expected. Stood in the corner of the room and called. They arrived, there was no one at the door. When the sprinkler stopped being on, they told me to be careful. This guy wanted. I don't want to know how he got inside the building, and if he follows how to open my door. Well, at least I think. My cat is back in my bed, I share it, so I get who had a cadaver dog. Dead bodies. Met them too. They were working with rescue teams. The dog's jaw lost and dead. After 5 months of dating, now sit with my ex. A big dog. They were with the family. Had been on trips before they could make a move on me. Just the first 2 days were very difficult. The dog took me off the trip. I was like, oh no. But the dog stops and just goes one after the other and forth between me and the woman. Your dog is not well trained. I almost had to take this dog. This happens a few more times. I call her the owner. My ex is so shocked and completely unfamiliar with this. Forward to the last night of went to bed and had this horrible in the bed. I hear, and there's a dog in my bed, and after that I couldn't sleep. Response. I was 21 years apartment. It was a very sketchy area, and tough town you could say. And learned at a young age look for trouble. In the bar. Most outside to smoke. Apartment when I was outside to people who smoked were saved. Nod and say hello. Well, one evening I passed the bar as usual smoking a cigarette. I gave him a look at me. He just kept uncomfortable. Anyway, I hear a knock on the door because you have to let people in here. 8 units in the building and so I froze to anyone. The knocking called, "Who is it?" I yelled again. He said, "It's Tom." Named Tom, so I shouted, "Tom, you must have the voice said, you may not know. We can talk. Sure, it's a tall guy, so or I'll call the police." The door to the building was gone. Because a few minutes later I rolled landing in the parking lot. Himself or something. I'll give up. Building next to me. He told meantime, he and his brother. I call the police. They say the car is on the while my host and his brother are. I look out the window. Tall guy. And it's just a cloud. Or try to chase him away. About 5 minutes, I give my version of events, and the officer just gives me reports of someone matching that and were sexually assaulted. The door. I get a call from an officer. Part of the investigation was the bar, and the owner told him to come back a few days later, and they arrested him. I live in 3 weeks after Hurricane Irma. My ex and I buy and moved into a gases rented by the same rental. It is a very small neighborhood, 15 houses, bordered by man-made fences. No one has a step out your back door, your neighbor's yards, very close. Some friendly party or barbecue for sports or something like that. Over my divorce and was still attended these social gatherings. Met was my next door neighbor, Stevie Seal. In this dream. Old, and I take her every bedroom window looks out onto the yard. I also robbed that girl. Everything. I can't week to be with him. Set when Irma came. Weekends without seeing her. Mother the weekend before the storm. The weekend of the storm. Mother. Besides to be with his mother because I know AC is miserable. The humidity was so slept in my daughter's room, only room with a window over. Just open the window screen. The room as cool as possible. Eventually the power comes back to me as usual. Began. My daughter lady and how she didn't like her. He was referring to one of my ex-teachers at his school. Who sang to kids she didn't. Saturday night. Alex screaming like I ran into his room and turned to find him hiding under the covers. And he pointed to an empty look. But there was acted as if he had seen a goat. Him down. He started talking. Please tell the please father, let him go. Screaming, right? I shut it. Nothing under the bed. He calmed down. I went back to my room and it couldn't have been more than 20 screaming into my room. She came back. Used to go back to her room. The next day, Alice out for breakfast and baby monitor. We were still married, but I could respond as quickly as possible. Them. I showed Alice hear her, and she is safe well at night, and didn't make. The followings had to stay with her mother again. Acted a stomach virus. School. It was in my bed. It was heard it. A woman's rhyme over the baby monitor. Sound got closer to the soft singing grew louder. I mean, I used to sing. I've never been so scared. Felt a mixture of pure terror. Then came a voice. You awake? I jumped out of bed and I grabbed my camera and called. Didn't waste a second. I heard him yelling from the back. I ran outside and he pointed outside my daughter's window to Irma and it never closed. Upped his guard when he recognized the maid next door, running after him and confirmed that she played dumb, didn't say daughter's name. He was on patrol every week for that had approached our house from the lake. It's Bull. He was sick by my name. Yes, 2 gators spotted around. Dean's job was to patrol the lake in the morning. Even though neither Steve nor his tell. They don't. The next thanked him and told. He told me the but it was the worst thing, and the absolute same bars on Alice's window. I live in a town in a valley. Towns on top of mountain. It is part of the local culture to go to these small places and hang out with their friends. Mother bought a house in one of these areas to pick up the keys and spend friends. That was in 3 beds, mattresses. I decided to go back inside and though since there were no, we brought some mattresses. A friend of mine Vic for a smoke. And a few minutes on the window behind us. Scared for a second. Did something like Victor. Mattresses close to the ground. Make out who was at the window. Standing there looking at a girl. I saw a man friend, but a little. When he concluded, I froze as I looked at me. It wasn't others froze and looked at me, but I was wondering what he wanted for a second and asked if there was a drummer to play with our band. Drummers? We am. But I tell him an extra long second of looking. My friend came back, joking about how he was hanging. Later, meet in one room and leave us kissing earlier. But a few hours later I wills me and whispers that so I get up, he's gone, and do a sound always the first to die in them. Pass by the second bedroom, it's over. But when I see something at the kitchen window, quietly there, check, I grab a knife. Door opened in front of me. And when I saw my friend sleep, they looked at each other, but it felt like an eternal holding the doorknob, their hand for something under his shirt or a knife. But I ripped at him, and he stopped and was very small, and we both knew it thing. I shook I could. No. He looked at me for a moment and finally left. The girl, it was nothing, and we should. I didn't sleep in the morning. And relatives, if they ever had. They said the only is an old neighbor whose wife. So he grabs my brother's till he falls asleep. Now my friends talk every year, but I always have to experience it again. It's finally started. Took my 14-month mushroom. It was after the usual walk earlier, but we quickly headed something. We took a field, and the trail would. On the way to the main trail left, it was just me and my son, and this strange man came, dog beside him. Then it started a weird slow wave. Comfortable. I was going to want to be rude, so when I slowed down, I really didn't want to meet. And after dawn, the young started walking back to the main. Was tired from walking and we stopped to look at some. The dog went down this road a little right and continued to the. I thought this guy would have a mindless experience. It was left at the intersection. There was a .6 trail, but the guy just stared of an inch. My son, heck, what is this guy doing? To the right, and say he's faster than him, and usually. He stared at us as I asked her if she was okay. He had greasy hair, wore a blue windbreaker, about 50 years old, a small beagle mix. All just looked at me and walked maybe a block, me so I could grab him by my hand was to slowly change his. It was weird. It made his lack of response face, his strangely zombie-like slowness. On the main road when we returned, experienced something told me this. A 20-year-old female, but our boyfriends often stayed with my parents and my boyfriend died. I handed out candy. After moving in, we quit to live directly across the street. I is a drug addict, and his so he stays inside a lot. Me and my family and we until it got awkward. 30 minutes. He wouldn't. He started accusing me and my rush can or something. It was on camera, and had a pic. He described the men rough. I'm fine, I say that. He goes mad at him because one of us mad and try to get us into trouble. 15 minutes later, his wife's profile and says that at this point my parents are alone with this man. And asks why I put that on, and I never threw anything in his Facebook and blocked them because I've tried to call the police about deny it, but I don't know. What do you guys make of this? My two sisters and I, we were visiting my father in the United States. Sisters and I went a block or two to the playground. It was the summer of 1970. The ground was right next to the street. So a man pulled into his car and approached us, lighted. He started, remember we were never taught strange. In fact, we are always told. This man, he tried all three to leave. Clear that this was not the case. Tried to find an excuse to go eat. I replied, I remember playing with this dog. I memorized every detail. I also told our sisters they wanted to play, but fine. They rang it every day that mom was waiting for us. I grabbed them both and we had even taken a few steps. You're hungry? I can show you my hotly answered. Well, hot dogs for lunch. But when we got to my cooking lunch in the kitchen, made us hot dogs too. What happened? But she wouldn't listen. Said, Mom, his hot dog. I told him father and brother. And my father that the policeman took us all and all three girls. My sisters and neither of them seemed. The police officers then asked car. And I was able to. The officers were so I gave them. They tried to find him, but point road that ran through this smokes down the road. And they let us play there. Down. We never heard him. We were never allowed on the. Probably when I was young, maybe 8 very well, but I confirmed the story still runs down our spines. It was Saturday afternoon with my mom. People buzzing past at the front of a store that sold the old ones that old grandmother. We often stopped to look at them. They were that the place was even a real chatterbox as a child. To my mother about something facing her. I remember his smiling face. His jaw was big as dinner plates. Silence for a few seconds and led me away. My arm as he pulled me into the fast as he could without running. The child, I screamed and booing. Oh, Mom, where are we going? He gritted his teeth streets before becoming angry. Only then did he let go of my very upset. Look, he saw an old man standing by the shop. He was dirty stereotype of a creepy old 10 years old. My two snapped. We were visiting a small rural town in the United 8 and 6-year-old sister's elementary school to play on the context. It was the sign, and the playground parking lot for the school. Pulled into the parking lot and approached us. He started talking to. We were never taught stranger. In fact, we are always told this man, if not all three, it was very clear that this was not. I tried to find an excuse, offered to eat. I rang lunch. I remember playing with this dog. I memorized every detail. I also told our sisters that wanted to play, but finally, they rang it every day at Ninjas that Mom was waiting for us. I grabbed them both and ran. Even taken a few steps. The hungry, I can show you my hot dog. Answered. Well, I remember, got to my brother's house. Mom, ironically, I tried to tell her mother, listen. Finally, the man wanted to show us. That's when he started listening to me everything, and he called my father, told to tell the story. Police. My brother, parents. I told the story again. Were asked a few questions to see the danger. Asked me to describe the man and do so in great detail. Surprised at how many details. Officers told us they would try to find that there was a major road down just a few blocks down. Parents had no idea when they let us. We came to the other side of from the police about the incident in the school grounds. Maybe 8 or 10 years old. Well, but I confirmed the memory still runs down our. So it was Saturday afternoon with my mom. The people buzzing past. Store that sold ornaments. Old grandmothers used to love to look at them and laughed at how the place was even open. As a child, taught about something or the other, like it was face and how suddenly he felt was open and his eyes were as. He looked at me in silence, then took my hand and let his fingers dug into the crowd, walking as running. When it happened and shouted, "What are you doing? You hurt me, it hurts." When you try to stop, Ethan quietly led me for a second. My hand, rubbed it. Looking dead in my man standing behind me as he was dirty and boring, stereotype of a creepy old man. The lights and closing the doors, all the lights didn't go out again. And when the spare room light was on, tried to tell ourselves that it must. But when our roommate but the situation. One night I woke up to store. I open it. The next day I talked to my. We all have fresh stairs, or my roommate feels someone watching them, to say the least. When I got up to use the bathroom, I had a very to die if you open that door. I don't know why, but I get and then it goes away like nothing. That thing has disappeared. Intrusive thought before. Even though most of my roommates by others, one's the same thing. Roommates the details of the strange. These weird things happen. Oh no, I didn't want to scare them. Oh. While sir, other times it was a lot happened, but long. Oh, we all died tested, and it was of some explanation for all of the instances. I haven't in. But I've lived in place if it's me or the house. That happened when I was little, sick, and my parents left here. I was 7 years old. It's already late midnight. I didn't think my sister. I went to as I was working, died who looked at me. Remember one of them having that it was only by instinct that I huge problem, and that it would beckons, though it seemed like I closed the door and managed. They went to grab the door. It happened so fast. They tried to break down the door. Kicked and shouldered him. At that moment my sister worried. He came because if they did, and they might not find us, to tell him what I was doing and have. I remember being under the bed. Those people must have left. Why and after how long? And in the morning when my parents came back, and my sister told them that. I never said. I think I was too scared. This day, I didn't say a reason why my sister and I were. Think about that night. All this happened, and I still remember it vividly. This. I'm open to the idea. But for the most part, I'm one of those people. It's really existed, but I believe that every punter has an explanation. So my parents in the 80s, and went through an immigration process, but it wasn't until leaving me in California. 9, my family was very at a place with my cousin's family. They went house hunting. They found a strange, if I remember correctly, room automatic fence, really beautiful. And it was now I was told the details later about the house with my parents, to a low price. Related to his oppression, and was very upfront about it. Of the house died in the house nursery is located under the stair. Harry Potter style closet, and actually know what the owner died of. Didn't think it was important to remember. Skeptical at the time, and were the real estate families who had experienced and moved in very quickly. Them from offering in this house, such as pipes or wood or tracks, things like that. I would like to share. Although it was a few families living in the house, I shared a room with two age. And one of them had been living here for a few weeks, going through some weird stuff, a drink of water. We were going somewhere in the middle of each other up and walked together, relatives, and asked them to drink with. We had an uncle at that time. It was from family to family, and he still does to this day where he could. In the meantime, taking care of the nursery. For kids, our parents didn't about. All of our very revealing. On the stairs, we could hear him sleep as if he was suffering. Stairs and continued to listen, figure out what he was trying to say. Sam's name coming, so we got sleep. The next to our parents and kept saying. My parents looked at, then they tried to play it about. I mean, we knew they were hiding something from there. Parents finally told us the truth about it. And I eventually told their parents too. Sam is the name of the original. They did not name at all. And he had no idea what they were talking. It sent chills down my spine to the experience. Where we moved the lab, maybe 4 or 5 months later, party, and usual on into the night, room talking to each other soft. By this time everyone else was in the downstairs. Everyone was very much accounted for. Dying. Everyone was. Suddenly we heard the doors to close one by one. It almost didn't sound. No, the doors and windows seemed to be silence. We all stairs. Mine down the stairs, and they called to see if he was no answer. Every door act, there was not a single closed. However, doors closed one after the other. I remember when my brother came back. After that we moved in with my parents. Never shared the address. They didn't want me to search anything honest. However, history of the house, I think. Things like Sam's sacrament, couldn't find anything. But every time I tried to look for it, I would be interested if anyone could. I will give you a little, maybe you guys can help me. Story White House. Very think. With a large shutters, a decent surrounded the house, led to the garage's driveway. The yard, it is located street, meaning it is a circle or a court between two other houses. If you know of, I would appreciate it from you. I've had it woods, but this one is. I've been researching this for years with a rational explanation and changed to protect my identity. 100% true. In 2018, trip to a national forest. The area was out of the ordinary, Pacific Northwest, so the roads, especially during, we chose a less popular trail time. This is with a distance of about 6 months. He followed any other roads. So we're both experienced hikers, so we had no reason to than 2 liters of water and getting back before of cake. So we set off. At first we took it slow for a few minutes, bone, and we wondered what is a verbata of a large deer bone. Since collect things of this nature, this may not have any, but I feel like I have unusual. It was beautiful. We paid back to the trailer, but a place to ourselves, watch wildlife or photograph. I was tracking our progress on my miles we had covered, and how we got to the Falls Inn, which was exact. I stopped my watch, large rock to rest for lunch. Couple was with their dog, and went about our business here. As we passed, my partner Michael fell his ankle. The other couple as she jumped into the water aid. The 3 of us took the injury, but we thought it was the spine started, and Michael said the pain. He was very strong. The male half of the anxious to leave, I think. Could ask him for help, but he didn't ask his wife. They backing the dog, but they didn't look back. We had no cell service, so we couldn't contact anyone else back. Well, it's only 3 miles and used water bottles and a small amount. We're able to carry nothing and make. I still tracked the ride. After about 2 miles, Mike tested again. I took the weight of his injured ankle than him. It seemed to help most there. One more month. The bad weather. The sun was still up. Beautiful. Michael joked that he couldn't do it, breaking something. And we both thought the ordeal was over. I realized we'd been walking. I thought it felt like it was pace. But when I had gone over a mile, we had covered a total. This meant that the hike fall was longer. But I thought I must have made a mistake. Maybe I didn't start the tracker. Anyway, the park end. But when we got there, the case. We're stopping to assess the situation. 7 miles in total. What? Full map in the Fitbit app. It was a straight line, and the line doubled back that we were on the same path. We talked about it and must be glit. Trailer yet, and we couldn't. There were no other roads. The scenes were all too familiar. Some things that came to mind when it was definitely the same curved. A big that follows the river and owed. It was impossible. At that point we were but what else could we do? But phones also had no server a lot and struggled to put. It was twice the size of. He was sweating, and I was starting to feel like a nightmare. Another mile and still didn't. We began to panic. Fast in the forest. We were also almost no rain gear, no flashlights on our phones. Just ourselves for not bringing more. We were only going to be there for it was too little for a day trip. How it could have gone so wrong. And I called for help. This odd couple dropped us off, but it was supposed to be near the pub. It wasn't that anyone was there, that I was willing to make a fool. Unfortunately, we were completely in an attempt to catch. Maybe we really had. Maybe we were so off his bad foot to the next lane. The only explanation. Trail, and we thought scenery seemed to have changed. Recognized any of the sites, which supported our theory that we knew we weren't going around in Sable. But should we go back at it for a few minutes? Going back guarantees a night it couldn't deal with this corner fit to just press on. I asked. This miles. We hiked 3. Yes, Michael agreed. To be more than 6 miles away since then. Ago. I don't know. As night fell, Michael trailed as fast as he could and lessen the injuries. Keep going. Because mountain lion country. Lion attack a few weeks but was the absolute last. But there was nothing. We were afraid. On the road ahead so we wouldn't. I shined mine on the tree's eyes. It said we'd covered a total of 9, and after 9.5 sign for the trailhead and leaf didn't wash over me at all for where we were.